Well, first of all, congratulations on being awarded Pioneer of Progress in Sportsmanship and Athletics.
Thank you. Quite an honor, and one that is unexpected. And we kind of just do our job. And as an athlete, you go from week to week, month to month, season to season. And in coaching, same. And as administration, very similar.
Is that kind of how you have to do it? Because you're in a job that gets so much praise, so much criticism, probably not a lot of in between, right? It's you're constantly being watched.
I think that in the world of sports, you start to learn, even when you're a little leaguer, that when you strike out 3 times in the game, you start to hear the rumblings from the crowd or the people in the bleachers. And I think at that young age, you hopefully are able to learn that the things that come from the outside, you got to put them away. You need to listen carefully to those people who you believe in, your family, your coaches that you believe in, people that are close to you, teachers, mentors. And then the other information is just kind of on the periphery. You know, some of it is helpful. When I struck out 3 times, it meant that I had to change something in my approach. So I think sometimes feedback, whether you ask for it or not, can be a gift. And I've learned through the years to deal with it. A lot of it I can set aside, but I think all people have to deal with outside voices and outside forces, and how you deal with that. Some days are better than others for me, but I think for the most part I've been beat down a number of times by the media or just fans or whatever, and it really has nothing to do with how I proceed.
Can you even go to the store or walk around and not have someone come up to you and give you advice about how to do this or how to do that?
I really love living in Provo and really in the state of Utah for that matter, because I think people that know that I am the athletic director at BYU, the vast majority, the highest percentage will come up to me in the store, on the street, and have something really friendly and very nice to say. I'm super grateful when people are supportive and have something nice for me. Very, very rarely does anybody come after me on the street with a criticism. So Cougar Nation, for that matter, has been overwhelmingly supportive of our operation, of the student athletes, the coaches, and the teams. And for that, I'm really grateful.
Can we go back to where you were born? That was California, correct?
Yes.
And raised in which city?
I grew up in a small town called La Crescenta. It's a suburb of LA. It took me about 20 minutes in the olden days to get to downtown LA with no traffic. Now, it could take 45 minutes, but it was a great place to be raised, close to the beach. You had the foothills and the mountains right behind our home, and it was great, incredible weather for most of the year.
Sports has always been a big part of your life, even as a child?
When I was a little kid, I lived about a stone's throw from a park, a little county park. And I would wake up in the morning, grab something as fast as I could to eat, and I was off to that park. I might come home for lunch, but I would come home for dinner. And then sometimes in the summer especially, I'd be back down at the park. And we had a great recreation program. So I was playing football, sandlot, baseball, basketball, soccer, running around, playing tag. They had caroms. They had all kinds of things for kids. So in growing up in that day in Southern California, it was every one of my friends and all the kids in the neighborhood and the community played everything. There were no coaches. There might have been like Parks and Rec organizers, but they'd put you in teams and then just let you play. No coaches, no fans, no parents. And so I kind of learned how to play all the sports. And then I chose the ones I liked the most. And by the time I got to high school, I was football, basketball, track.
So those 3, and then it was football really that you stuck with and ended up here at BYU as a player.
Yeah, kind of an amazing thing when you're a 17-year-old in high school, you may be turning 18 and it's time to go away. Some people will go to college, but I was going away to play college football. And the thought was frightening, and I had a lot of options. But I got hurt my last game of my senior year and had to have surgery on my right hand, and I was a right-handed quarterback. So a lot of people dropped me like a hot potato. Some kind of hung in with me, and BYU was one that said, hey, we'll take you as a defensive back, because we got these two guys on the team, one named Mark Wilson and one named Jim McMahon. I think we'll be in good shape with them at quarterback. So that's how I moved from quarterback to defensive back.
I'm curious, though, you were not a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints at the time, correct?
Correct.
So why BYU without the religious connection? What brought you here?
When I was in high school and growing up through elementary school and junior high, I had a number of friends who were members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. My next-door neighbor was one of my best friends, and I had a couple teammates. So I knew a little bit about the religion and the church, but really they started to recruit me out of my hometown before I knew anything about BYU. They wanted me to play for BYU, and when BYU came around, I knew a little bit about it. And I think Elder Nilsson, was really the first football player or athlete at BYU that I'd ever heard of, but I knew about him. So when I came up on my visit, Lavelle Edwards and Fred Whittingham, Dick Felt, they recruited me to come to BYU. I came up here on a visit in January. It was snowing like crazy.
A little different than California.
I fell in love with it. And I knew that it was a great academic school. I knew it was a place that I could take care of business and pursue my dreams and my goals. And it really turned out to be everything and more than I had imagined.
And what was it like playing here? And also, what was it like, being a non-Latter-day Saint athlete? All of that kind of.
I think playing here was super special. Of course, I had the opportunity to play for the legendary Lavelle Edwards. I don't think there's really a week that goes by where I'm not in this building, on campus over at the stadium, which bears his name, where I'm not thinking about the lessons that I learned from Lavelle, his coaching staff, from faculty members on this campus. I knew the presidents of the university. Dallin Oaks was a president, and Jeffrey Holland was a president, and they knew me. And to me, that seemed like natural, that even though it was a big school of probably high 20,000s at that time, that the presidents were able to connect with a young freshman, not a member of the church, that didn't play a lot of football at the time. I wasn't playing early on. And they kind of raised me here. And I just think now, as you look at President Oaks and Elder Holland, there's a really good reason why they're in the position they are, is because of their love for people. And I witnessed that when I was a young, no-name kid from LA.
But you got some good playing time here. Visika, we're talking to him later. He sent me a photo from the Miracle Bowl, and you're in front of him as he's returning a punt. Talk about just what it was like to play here and be part of some really historic, amazing times for the football program.
I really didn't really know what this would turn into for football at BYU, but there were a combination of amazing coaches and players. And I played at a high school that was very successful. And so I played a role. And I wasn't the star of my team when I was in high school. We had a lot of kids that were really good and were better players than me, but I learned to play my role when I was in high school. So when I came to BYU, I think that was an advantage, that I found my niche and I found how I could contribute to the team. And as you fill that up, I learned you're going to get more to do. And so, as a player, I developed and grew. They helped me, they taught me, they trained me, and I, developed. I think that leadership was a way that I had some fundamentals of leadership, but at BYU, watching Lavelle Edwards and the coaches and the people that led this school and the church, I learned how to fill it up. And so there's still a lot for me to learn. I'm an older athletic director right now, and it's been a long time that I've been in athletics, I still feel like there's something I can learn every day. And I kind of attribute that to how much I learned when I was here at every step of the way. Player, student athlete, coach, and administrator.
Had you ever thought the NFL was in your future?
No, not really. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to, every little young boy that plays football feels and has wide open eyes that they'd love to play in the NFL someday. But I really had other goals. I had an older brother who played football at UCLA, and he had an in-neck injury that stopped him from playing another down. And he was a great mentor and a great tutor. He's the one that taught me how to play and how to compete. And he taught me along those lines because football was taken away from him. So all the times where I was growing up, he taught me that academics has to come first. You have got to be able to have something that you can anchor yourself to, and it can't be football. It has to be academics. If you do great in academics, parallel, you can grow your dreams and goals in football, but academics has to be right there. So I had no other choice than to kind of follow that parallel path. So I was a good student here at BYU. I got my degree in biology, and I had success here at BYU to where I could play in the NFL. But I've always felt all along that I wasn't overly weighted in football or in my career. I felt that there were so many other things in my life that I wanted, that I wanted to achieve. I wanted to see, I wanted to learn, I wanted to feel. And those things come from having balance in your life. And I learned that here at BYU.
What did you learn? What stood out most of your time in the NFL? I mean, you have Super Bowl rings. You were on the 49ers, but what would you say stood out the most from your career there?
Well, I don't think there's any question in my life, I get asked the question a lot, what was your favorite thing about being a 49er? I'd say my teammates and coaches. I have some Super Bowl rings from championships. I never wear them because they mean something to me for sure. But like I can't look at them every day and think, oh, look at that. It's just like there's so much more to being a Super Bowl champ. It's not about me. It's about all those people that came together. Even outside the coaches and the players, it's all the administration and staff and all those employees, and it's the fans. And I think that's, I kind of felt grounded when I was with the Niners. We had some players that had huge egos and were a little bit crazy personalities, but there were a lot of people around that organization that taught me about the role again. I had a role to play. I might have been, every year with the 49ers, there would be this thing that would come out in the San Francisco Chronicle, and the sports writer would say who's going to make the team and who's not going to make the team. This is in July or August, right before the season. And I think for my 7 years I played, I was on the fringe of the second to last, the last, or under the cut line every year. And I just, I didn't like reading that, but I always knew that I had a role in that team, that my teammates and my coaches and the administration, they always convinced me that if I played my role, it was an important part of being on that team. And so, like, we had Joe Montana and Ronnie Lott and Jerry Rice and so many other great players. I could name dozens that had a role just like me. It was a bigger role than mine, but mine was yet an important role. And I was comfortable with that. I had an opportunity to go to other teams and maybe have a bigger role, but I loved my role on the Niners. And I think that's why I was able to learn so much, because I wanted to soak up every drop of teaching that I could get from them. And you had Bill Walsh, who was legendary. He was a different style of coach than Lavelle Edwards, so I could kind of compare and contrast and take the best of both worlds. And I just felt like it was up to me. I was in control of whether I was going to make the team, if I was going to get cut or not. And there was a time when it got to the end of 7 years, I really wasn't good enough to play in the league anymore, and it was the end of my football career. But I had other things out there, so it wasn't the end of the line.
It feels like that lesson about the role, you probably have taken that into many pursuits, right? That lesson of playing the role you've got at the time you've got it, right?
Yeah, I think everyone on this earth can play a role, and you play this role in so many different facets. So I'm here as the athletic director at BYU. I once was, a cornerback on the football team. So those are two diverse, very widely different roles. And I have a role in my family as a father, as a husband. I have a role in my family as a brother, as a son. I have a role in church. I have a calling. I'm a neighbor. And if people think about it, we play various roles at the same time. And it's important. If you're intentional about the role you play and you don't like your role, then it's up to you to be able to try to change it. And if someone's controlling your role and you don't like that, then get out from under the umbrella of that person that's controlling you. You might have to take a pay cut. You might have to move. Things might have to change in your life. But I think that we can control more things than we think. I think certainly my life has been influenced by the power of my Savior Jesus Christ in my life. And so when I talk about balance, there's always that spiritual side. Here at BYU, I wasn't a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but I had a strong faith. And I think my faith increased. And from those days, I learned my role in the kingdom. I'm not an apostle. I'm a father. I'm running an athletic department at BYU. I have a role in my ward. And I try to balance that out so that I can serve other people, play that role, and try to continue to keep balance in my life.
And you converted to the church in '88 then, right?
Correct.
Were you in the NFL at the time?
It was this off season before my last year.
Before your last one. And so I assume a lot of seeds have been planted leading up to that, and you became a member ultimately. Your wife was already a member, right?
Yeah, it was.
You had been Lutheran, is that correct?
Right.
Yeah.
I had incredible friends here at BYU when I was younger, and I met Lori, who was a member of the church, and we became close friends, and we started to date, and eventually we fell in love, and we had incredibly deep conversations about the church and about life and about families, and we decided to get married, and I told her that I would pursue. I was far enough in my journey or investigation of the church that I knew I would do this, that I would make that commitment, but I needed to do it on my terms, not someone else's. And we went down that road together, and I had great missionaries in my life, not just formal brothers and sisters, but people just around me that were great examples, and I wanted to have that in my life. And so at that point in time, we started raising a family, and the doctrine became real. The feelings of the Spirit became real in my life, and it was just like overnight that I decided that I wanted to be baptized and be a member of the church.
And after your NFL career, you got into coaching, including as a head coach at UC Berkeley. How was that?
My time at Berkeley was very rewarding. And when I say that, people go, well, wait a second, you weren't successful. And in fact, I feel that I failed in many ways. But I say it was rewarding because it was probably the place in my life, the time in my life where I learned the most about myself. I still felt like I had a role. I just didn't fulfill that role as well as I could have. And I knew that if I got another chance, I'd do things differently. I'm super grateful that I got another chance to be in a leadership position because I've been able to grow and lead in a way different than I had earlier in my life. And if I hadn't had those experiences where I failed, I wouldn't have been able to learn. And so I think that there's been so many times in my position as BYU athletic director where I will think back to experiences in my life where I can say to a coach or a student athlete, let me tell you something, I've been down that road, and that road does not lead to success. It's a dead-end road, and you're either going to crash on it or you're going to have to turn around and walk all the way back. And that's what I had to do. I crashed. I had to turn around, walk all the way back, and find a new place to grow. And this has been the place. I've been at BYU for about 22 years right now, and it's been a great place to grow.
Is there one specific thing you think that you did at Berkeley that you wish you hadn't or done differently that you've been able to turn around and do the opposite here?
I think a lot of it has to just do with the way that I relate with people. I think I love people. I like to connect with people, but I tried to feel that I could take care of everybody. And sometimes when you try to make everybody happy, nobody's happy. And I learned that sometimes as a leader, you have to say no. And sometimes you have to tell people that they can't do what they want to do because it's not in the best interest of the team. And I wasn't great at that. I wasn't great at that at Cal. And I think I'm better at that here, but there's still days when I say I can do better. I know that through an experience here at BYU, when I see the end result isn't what I want, that I can look back and track it. And there's a reason. And I think it's important. I think that's when I talk about intentionality, that you have to be able to understand the reasons why you fail. So because if you don't, you're just going to continue to fail. And if you can change and if you can go through transitions, you have a good chance of having success in the future.
So you were associate athletic director here before being named AD in 2005, and you've done it now almost 20 years in this
close
job.
to.
Has it felt like almost 20 years?
College athletics has changed dramatically through the close to 20 years I've been here. I feel that student athletes, the people, I say they're the secret sauce of BYU. That's why I'm here. That's why all of our employees in athletics are here, is for the student athletes. That's why we bring in really incredible coaches, is for the student athletes. And they have changed in many regards, but they're still people. They have stayed the same in many regards. And I just think that what I've learned the most is that those one-on-one connections and those small but intimate conversations are super important, because most of our student athletes come to BYU and they're going to play. They're student athletes. They're going to go to school, but they still love the game that they play. But more important than any of that is their life. Are they learning? Are they growing? Are they coming closer to the Savior? And at BYU, it's a school where we can talk about God. We can talk about spiritual things. We can pray. We can quote scriptures. And in all those things, we have all those incredible tools here at BYU, and we can use that to build up and strengthen student athletes. So I'd say 10 years ago, I started giving away a lot of my responsibilities in the athletic department that I would somewhat micromanage. I felt like we had to create a culture that I wanted before I could do that. But as I gave things away, we got stronger. I think their strengths, my people here in the athletic department that were in the various units, could do it better than me. I started to go back to my role. And my role, my favorite things to do were to work and tutor the coaches and the student athletes.
So you've grown as a leader here throughout your tenure and developed even, from the beginning to now.
Oh, for sure. I think that in some ways, I think I'm at my best now, but I had more energy, and I had to make some hard decisions early on to establish culture. But I think now I feel I like my job more, in that I'm working with the student athletes and coaches way more than I did in the earlier part of my career.
What's been the highest point for you being athletic director so far?
I think the highest point as athletic director, I get asked this question a lot, is there's individual episodes with student athletes where they reach their dreams and their goals. And that's what it's all about. That's why they come to BYU, is they have these dreams from the time they were kids. And a lot of them are kids that grew up watching BYU. Some of them are not members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and don't really know anything about the history, but their dreams have come and are coming to pass at BYU. And when you see the joy that they feel from being successful in achieving, that's a remarkable feeling for me. I love to see them, just that look in their face, their eyes, the emotions, the passions that they feel when it comes true and it happens and it's real. There's nothing better than that for me.
What about the lowest point?
I can't really say. I would say the lowest is kind of conversely related to the highest, and that would be when kids come here and they don't achieve their dreams, and they, like, for whatever reason, they fail and then they leave. Sometimes it's they get hurt and they're not able to continue, and then they don't turn it around and they just go down, down, down. Sometimes, one of my favorite stories is we have a student athlete this year who, when she was a freshman, she was a big-time star, one of our up-and-coming recruits that was going to come to BYU and be great. And she was in an accident and she fractured vertebrae in her neck. And the doctors told her that she wasn't going to be able to walk. Maybe she could walk. She could walk, but that she wasn't going to be able to run and compete. That she'd be okay, but she couldn't compete. But so she came out, and in time, a lot of time, she actually started to compete, and she couldn't, reach the heights of what she wanted to accomplish, and that was super hard. And this year she just kept after and after, and this year she made it to the NCAA finals in the 800 meters, and she placed and was in a position where she became a first-team All-American. Wow. And it wasn't so much that she was an All-American. It wasn't so much that she scored these great points for our team. It was that she had overcome this incredible difficulty where people said, you can't do it. And she did. That's an amazing story. And I see those on a lesser scale, like almost every day. But sometimes around here, it just doesn't work and they're gone. And once they're gone, we can't ever finish the story here. And so, I think that's one of my favorite aspects of being at BYU, is that so many kids come in here and their dreams are what they are. And then at the end of their career, they've changed. And they've learned to adapt. And they've changed their course based on new information, new spiritual feelings, a transition in their life. Some of them get married. Often many of them have served missions. Some of them have had experiences with their teams, but they're way different than when they were 17-year-old high school students. And at the end of their time here, it's just like the most amazing feeling to see how much they've grown and how much they've developed. And just for me to be able to say, I don't know the won-loss records. Those things are unimportant to me. Just their growth and development and what they can be. They know that they can do anything. That's the reward for me.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by that answer because I thought you might have said, the best was, getting to Sweet 16 or this win, or the lowest was this loss or not advancing to Elite 8 or whatever. Do you kind of move past the individual games and the wins and the losses?
Yeah, I think the individual losses come and go, the individual games. I guess how I can see that is, I played in the NFL with the San Francisco 49ers. I was part of 4 Super Bowl championship teams. I don't remember a lot of the games. I remember the players, and I remember the coaches. I remember the lessons like that. I know, and to this day, it's been, close to 40 years that I've been around these kids my teammates and coaches with the 49ers, like 35 years, and we still talk. We have a text thread that's 49er DBs. That's what position I play, defensive back. That is on a regular weekly basis. 35 years later, we're still kidding each other and joking with each other and asking each other for help. Talking about the needs and the service that we can help with our teammates in the community. It's an amazing feeling to know that what a lot of people would think is the reward for the Super Bowl championship is a Lombardi trophy or a Super Bowl ring. The real reward is to win and get to that level. It takes way, way more blood, sweat, and tears, but it's you can't do it unless you can connect on a super personal level with your teammates and coaches. And I'm so fortunate to have that with dozens of players.
So it's the same here. The wins and losses come and go, but at the end of the day, it's about the people.
No question about it. We need to win. I don't think there's any question about it. Is you need to be relevant. Businesses that are not successful, they go out of business. And I think in athletics at BYU, we try to represent every time we go out. Sometimes we can win a game and people think we didn't play well. And that's not representing very well, even though you got the W. Other times we play extraordinarily well and lose, and people are proud of the way you represented. So I think sometimes in life, outcomes are overrated. Now, in the long term, if you do the right things and you follow the processes that you believe in, even though you might not win, eventually you will. But if you're thinking about the outcome every game, and that's the only thing, you will forget the most important thing, and that's the journey. And I'm glad that my memory, they always say that defensive backs have to have bad memories. And what that means is you're going to get beat on long bomb touchdown passes, and you got to come back and play the next play or the next series. And I love that expression because that's what I was as a DB, is I'm willing to forgive and forget myself, because some people I've seen around here are student athletes, they can't do that. And for me, I've learned to forgive myself because there's always tomorrow. And I'm going to have to come back the next day and lead. There's going to be someone that I'm going to have to talk to. And if I've failed and I can't forgive myself, or I can't come out of it, I can't get up off the mat, how am I going to help someone else? So I've been exposed to so many experiences, many good, and a lot that are tough. But in the end, you know what the goal is, and that's to keep on churning, endure to the end. Keep learning, keep growing, keep loving, keep serving. And if you do that, things are going to be okay.
What's your outlook for the future? Big 12 now. By the time this airs, BYU will be in the Big 12. So what's your outlook for the future?
Will we have played yet a game?
I haven't played a game yet, but what do you most think about as you think about the future in the Big 12?
A lot of people say, well, what do you think? You ready? And I say, well, I'm thinking right now is you better be careful what you wish for. It might come true. And, right now, I'm a little anxious that we've prepared hard for many, many years. But in the last year and a half since we were invited, we've had to transition to prepare ourselves to be ready for the Big 12. And I'm asking myself occasionally, have we prepared in the right way? I don't know. We'll figure out whether we prepared in the right way by how we play. Not by necessarily the wins and losses, but by how we play, how we compete, how we represent. And I'm confident that we're prepared for that. People want to know, how many games are you going to win in football this year? Yeah, I don't know. I'll tell you at the end of the season how many we won and how many we lost. But I can't go day to day worrying about wins. They're important. That relevancy is what our fans see sometimes. But there's so many other ways that make the process more successful. And that's what's going on right now in the summertime. You look out the window right now and you see student athletes, football players, working out in what are called PRPs, player run practices. There's no coaches, but they're getting ready in their own way. And they all have individual dreams and collective goals. And I see it going on right now. If I didn't see them out there working, I would feel like, are they really intentional about what they want to achieve? But I feel for the most part, our student athletes are driven to be everything they can be in all areas of their life. Now, when they get out of balance, it's like the wheel without the spokes, and it starts to wobble. That's part of my job, and all the people that work here, is to notice that, to be able to step in and help. And like when people say, what do you do? What's your responsibility as an AD? And I say to clear a path, as clear of a path as I can for our student athletes to go. And we have this expression around here. It's everywhere, but it's not just ours. Let's go. Let's go. And what that means is, hey, we have done all we can. Let's go. Let's put the test to the question and see if we're ready, see if we're prepared. And you have wins and losses and celebrations. This is a celebration right now. Yeah, did we get a win by coming into the Big 12? Yeah, I'd say so. But let's turn the page. There's another chapter that's going to be written in the history of BYU athletics. And we better start writing right now and stop looking backwards, because we're here, and it's time to celebrate. That's what this Big 12 week is all about. But I'm ready right now to not look back and to just look ahead to what we got.
Last question for you is, tell me about your family, wife, kids, and just the role they've played in your life and
I have
success.
a family that is super strong together. We all have our foibles, and we all have our strengths and weaknesses. We all play our roles together. I think everybody knows the role that they play in our family. The one thing that I'd say is we all have an interest in athletics. Just growing up around me being a player and a coach and an AD, it's a good thing that your children and your wife like athletics. And one of our favorite things is to come to games together. In a football game, a lot of ADs will host donors or sponsors or dignitaries. And at our games, we close the doors, it's our family. And we rock and roll in there, and we call plays, and we throw things at the window, and we're just we just love the Cougs, the players and the coaches, the games. And we have walked out of those boxes sometimes feeling jubilant, and other times we're super sad that it didn't turn out that way. But I love that part of our family, is that each week we get to see what the Cougs are all about and their love for the game, and we can experience that together. It's also nice to be an athletic director, to have a wife that feels going to, a softball game, a volleyball game, a basketball game is date night, because we go to a lot of BYU Cougar games.
Had a lot of athletic date nights.
A lot of
over your
dates,
marriage,
a lot
I'm
of
sure.
dates that are on the campus of BYU. But my wife Lori is a jewel, and she's been extremely supportive. I couldn't have done some of the things that I've done here without her support. I spend a lot of time and energy and effort, and so do all of our coaches and their spouses are all a big part. Their families are all a big part of their success. And once again, it comes back to that role. And do my children play a role in BYU athletics? Yeah, absolutely. And that is they feed me and they love it, and so I'm there, and we can share in that together. If I couldn't share if I couldn't share BYU athletics with my children and my wife and my grandkids, it wouldn't mean as much to me.
Anything else you want to add that I haven't asked?
I think that's
Covered
good.
your whole life, so
Yeah.
there we go. Thanks for taking
Hey,
time
my
to
pleasure,
answer all
man.
my questions.
Sure.
And